We are so lucky to have our knowledgeable Stephanie Turner with us. She has done this series before, but I thought it was so valuable that we're asking her to do it, and probably will do it every year. So she is amazing. It's going to be great. And Stephanie, take it away. Tell them a little bit about what you're doing.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you. So my name is Stephanie Turner. I have the pleasure of talking to you today about my favorite topic, autism. I am the Autism Division Director here at the South Carolina Department of Disabilities and Special Needs. Autism eligibility falls under my purview. The Autism Connect Conference is something of a passion of mine. I also support our regional facilities in a small capacity, in just a small way that I can help some of those mental health professionals over there. But we do a lot all over South Carolina, raising awareness and acceptance for autism and promoting inclusive opportunities in the community, not only for kids, which is really cool, but also for the adults, like the folks that you serve. So today I get to talk about my favorite topic. So when Becky asked me to do this, the answer is always yes, because it's my favorite. So we'll go through it. Go ahead.
One thing, Stephanie, I was just going to point out to everybody, Stephanie's been doing a lot of work in our regional centers with some specific folks, and has really got some great tools to use for those. So, you know, she's very knowledgeable and has dealt with some folks that have some difficulty with communication and all of those things. So you are in good hands here.
Thank you. So today we're going to talk about autism. I'm really going to dive into their sensory sensitivities and needs, which is pretty common with our folks. Then we're going to talk about some learning characteristics. So while you guys are caring for our individuals, you're probably going to try to teach them some skills, if that's communication, if that's, related to eating or job related. Some of our folks learn a specific way, and it might not be the way that we all learn in this room. So I think it's important to go through that. We will have an opportunity to practice some of these skills. So there is a lot of participation today. So in the chat and stuff like that. So this is an interactive presentation, and we'll start with our first question. Go ahead and enter into the chat if you know someone diagnosed with autism. Thanks, Joanne. Thanks, Pandora. Thanks, Kim, Renee, Amanda, Celeste. Yeah, we all know somebody with autism, I would imagine, in our current roles. If you're in this meeting, you probably know someone diagnosed with autism, either personally or professionally. I feel like I know more and more people with autism, obviously in my role professionally, but even personally with each passing year. So when it comes to the diagnosis of autism, obviously there's a medical criteria. It's not what TikTok says gives you the tism. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the medical diagnosis. There are specific criteria that must be met. This is reflective of our criteria met for our autism eligibility category, but it's not because somebody answered some BuzzFeed quiz and because they lined things up as a kid. It's a complex lifelong developmental condition or disability that typically appears during early childhood and can impact a person's social skills, communication, relationships, and self-regulation. This is the definition that I feel comfortable giving to first responders, to family members and caregivers, because this paints a broad picture. Autism is a very broad spectrum. We've all heard, once you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism. So I'm sure at your program, if you took everybody who's on the spectrum and put them in the same room, no two people would be the same. And I'm not surprised, right? Because if you took all of us and put us all in one room and I asked you questions like, how many people like pineapple on pizza? Not everybody's going to raise their hand for that one either. So we're all unique, just like all our individuals on the spectrum are unique. We're going to watch a quick video. This is helpful for younger kids, for anybody who's school aged. It's a nice, brief video about how autism can make amazing things happen. So we're going to watch it real quick. I'm going to play it for a few seconds. If somebody can give me a thumbs up or somewhere in the chat to let me know that they can hear the audio, that would be great.
We are all different, and that's wonderful. Some differences are easy to see. Height, hairstyle, gender, eye color, and so on. Other differences can't be seen. Our favorite foods, fears, or special skills. Interestingly, the way we see the world is also different. For instance, what do you see in this drawing? Most people see a duck, but some of you might have seen a rabbit. Whichever you saw, you are correct. This is just a trick drawing to show you that all brains work differently. The brain is your body's computer. It works differently for all of us and controls how you learn. That's why we are all good at different things. How you feel, which is why we all feel different emotions. And how you communicate. Sometimes the brain is connected in such a way it affects the senses and how we perceive and read situations and interactions. This is known as autism. Many people have autism, so it's likely you already know someone who is autistic. And for this reason, it's useful to know a little bit about autism. The special wiring inside an autistic brain can sometimes make the person good at tasks we may find difficult, such as mathematics, drawing, or music. It can also do the opposite, and activities we find too easy are incredibly difficult to them, such as making friends. The senses constantly send information to your brain about your surroundings and other people. However, when a person's brain and its senses don't communicate well, the brain can become overwhelmed and confused, affecting how they see the world. Picture yourself walking down the street. This is how an autistic brain may experience the same walk. Scary, isn't it? Sadly, in many cases, the person can't say out loud how they feel. So even though there's chaos going on in their heads, they seem okay on the outside, unable to ask for help. We all develop behaviors to help us feel calm in uncomfortable situations. We may look away, hug ourselves, chew our fingernails, fidget, bite our lips, and so on. Equally, autistic people develop behaviors that help them cope with these intense moments. These actions may seem unusual, but they're just their way to feel calm. When they happen, it means they are having a hard time. The kind thing to do is not to give them an even harder time by getting cross, ignoring them, or mocking them. Remember, just because a PlayStation can't read an Xbox game, it doesn't mean it's broken. People with autism need friends who are willing to take the time to know them. With good communication and plenty of patience, everyone would be better off. People with autism are not ill or broken. They simply have a unique view of the world. And with a little support from their friends, they might just be able to share that view with us. Autism can make amazing things happen.
So this video is an introduction to autism. It's an award-winning video. It was aimed at raising awareness and to promote understanding and acceptance in the future. I just want to ask you guys a couple of questions. Make sure you didn't take a nap during the video, so just answer these in the chat. In the video, which one of the cartoon characters had autism? Go ahead, take a guess. With the red shirt. I don't know what they were wearing. Watch this thing like 10,000 times. The girl with the red shirt? Yeah, because I had a boy with a blue shirt. Okay. Who else had autism? Does anybody know? Renee, you're on it. All of them had autism? So in the video, the two people that they were showing to have autism are going to be this redheaded little boy here, and then this black-haired girl with the red dress on. So when you guys are watching this, and I'm sure you've seen a difference in your clients as well, you can see more of the symptoms of autism in males, maybe a little bit quicker than you see them in females, or females tend to mask some of their symptoms. So the girl was quieter. It's more socially acceptable in America for the girl to be quiet and subdued while the boy is a little rowdy, and then you kind of notice that more. So just like they were talking about in the video, there are some things that we do when we're anxious and overwhelmed to calm down. So go ahead and enter in the chat. If you are having a really rough day and you're really hyped up or keyed up and you need a way to relax at the end of the day, what are some of the things that you guys do? Is that a glass of wine? Is that a bubble bath? Is that a walk with the dog? How do you guys wind down? Humming, okay. Yeah, some music, that's great. Reading, absolutely. Walking outside, listening to music, all this fun stuff. Some of our folks can't do that. So some of our folks at some of our facilities aren't able to take a walk outside because there's nobody to supervise them, or they can't read because nobody talked to them about that, or maybe they don't have easy access to music, even though that they love it. So think about some of these things that we use to cope and to calm down that might not be available to our folks, and maybe they should be, would be the argument. I think that they had a lot of good stuff. Some people, for some reason, think that our folks with autism don't like people, so they don't want to be social. And what you saw over and over again in this video is absolutely, it might look a little bit different, but they want friends. I would say every person I've ever talked to that has autism wants friends. It's just particularly difficult for them. So can somebody, well, as many of you as possible, enter into the chat, how many people have autism? So is it 1 in 2, 1 in 300? What's the current prevalence rate of autism? 1 in every 64 is a guess. What else do we have? 1 in 100. I'm gonna give Renee a gold star. She is super paying attention. Thank you so much, Renee. We are at 1 in 36. So if I had a group of 36 people in one room, the likelihood of them being on the spectrum, of one person being on the spectrum, is pretty high. Now, this number is for 8-year-old children because that's what the study was done in, but this translates to about 1 in 45 as the prevalence rate for adults. So you can see how this trend has increased. If I had anybody in the room that was born in the year 2000, in their lifetime, the autism prevalence rate has increased 317%. It's a spike. So if you guys are thinking in your programs throughout your career, you are having more and more people with the autism diagnosis at your program, you're not wrong. It's becoming more and more common. So you can see how it's kind of jumped throughout the years. And once upon a time, it was 1 in 68, which is what a lot of people saw in commercials, and it's just gotten more and more prevalent. So other things to think about is autism is 3 times more common amongst male than females. We used to know that it was 4 times more common, but it's now 3 times more common in males than females. We're doing better about finding it in girls or identifying it in girls. Some other things to know, it does not discriminate against cultural or ethnic background, socioeconomic status. It's pretty even across the board. I would say some countries do a better job at doing the screenings than maybe other countries do. So you see the prevalence rates ebb and flow across different countries, but we're on pretty much the same trend. If you guys have questions as we go through this, I know autism statistics for days. Some people care, some people don't. So if you guys have questions, let me know. Happy to share. Please enter in the chat what you've heard causes autism. It could be true or not true, but what have you heard causes autism? Vaccines. I have heard vaccines. Brain imbalance. Okay. In utero exposure. Stacy, have you been in one of my trainings before? Hormones and chemicals in foods. All right, Joanne. Hey, all right, cool. So she already knows the answer. That's awesome. Okay, so there are 3 main causes of autism, which is cool. Once upon a time, we had no idea what caused autism, right? So there's no single known cause. It's generally accepted that it is caused by abnormalities in the brain structure and function. The 3 main reasons that we can see through science is genetics, advanced parental age, and exposure to certain agents while in utero, like Stacy was saying. So advanced parental age means if mom or dad is over 40 years of age or older, their child has an increased risk of developing autism. So the firstborn offspring of 2 older parents were 3 times more likely to develop autism, is one statistic. The certain agents while in utero is a fancy way of saying so while the mom was pregnant, either she ingested something or there was something in her environment that she was exposed to, and that child later went on to develop autism. This could be the use of alcohol, use of anti-seizure drugs during pregnancy, lead, ethyl alcohol, methylmercury, I'm not going to pronounce that, misoprostol, valpuric acid, maternal rubella infection, and some insecticides. Now, we are constantly developing chemicals that are unregulated, so I'm sure there are other ones that are out there. I can definitively tell you that vaccines do not cause autism. That study has been debunked 10 times over, and that person who published the study said that admitted to falsifying data, they took his license, he can't practice anymore, and he's one of the very few redacted journal articles. So it's fake news. However, what we do see is about the time that a parent would get the MMR vaccine is about the time that they can't ignore the autism symptoms anymore. So they happen about the same time, which is why parents sometimes rely on that as a reason. Far and away, the number 1 cause for autism is genetics. It's passed down. It's a heritable trait. They can do genetic tests at our lovely Greenwood Genetics Center and find some chromosomal abnormalities or deletions, for disorders with just a bunch of letters and numbers, and it pinpoints to autism. So we have found the reason, which is kind of cool because now we can focus on treatment. So if you think about all the folks that you know that have a diagnosis of autism, go ahead and enter into the chat some of the things that individuals with autism have in common. Ooh, they want a routine. They want a regular schedule, or they need a regular schedule, maybe in some cases. They're organized. Ooh, I love that. How could we use that for a job, right? Sensory issues, food, clothing, noises. Yeah, see that a lot. Absolutely. So even though autism is a spectrum, there are some things that they have in common. They might have a delayed learning of language, which might have resulted in a pediatrician visit early in their life. Some of our folks may have difficulty making eye contact. There is a book out there written by an individual with autism who describes eye contact as painful. So, we don't force them to make eye contact anymore. They could have difficulty holding a conversation, that back and forth. That might be a one-sided conversation about their special interest. They could have difficulty with executive functioning, which is a fancy way of saying reasoning and planning. If you've ever worked with somebody and you've thought to yourself, oh, they know better, or I know they know how to get dressed or tie their shoes by themselves, but they won't do it. It's that executive functioning piece that needs to be worked on. A lot of our folks have a narrow or intense interest. I'm sure a lot of your folks have unique interests. And if you were in my previous training, we talked about like Ricky Martin, Maury, and a toothbrush, for an example. A lot of our folks could have a history of poor motor skills, either fine motor or gross motor. When they were children, a lot of them worked with occupational therapists, for example. And then, as many people mentioned, sensory sensitivities are pretty common as well. We're going to watch a video of an adult because the last one was cute. It's a cartoon. It's for kids, but I think it's important to also see autism through an adult's perspective. So this video is based on the last chapter of Carly Fleischman's book, Carly's Voice, Breaking Through Autism. It is the only chapter written entirely by Carly. Carly is diagnosed with autism, can't speak, and uses a tablet to communicate.
I can't wait for a coffee. Oh, hello, barista.
What do you girls want?
Skim soy latte?
Taryn, soy can't be skim.
Hot chocolate, orange juice.
No, Dad, I want a coffee. Hot chocolate? Great.
So I was thinking of going to Sarah's later. Could you give me a ride?
Yeah, sure. Are you cool with taking your sister?
Yeah.
Wait, what? I have my own plan.
Carly.
Okay, I'll see you tonight, okay?
Carly. How can I help?
I think communication is key. We talked about it last time. We'll talk about it every day till we're blue in the face. But Carly's life changed when she was given a communication device. And I think it's life-changing from some of the folks that you guys serve as well. But before we get to that, what did you notice that was overwhelming to Carly in particular? Go ahead and enter it into the chat. Sounds, absolutely. Noise. Noises in particular are Carly's sensory sensitivity, 100%. So if you were her provider, finding some accommodations for her that would be helpful, especially when you know you're going somewhere noisy, would be a key to helping her for sure. What you also saw with her deficit in communication was a lack of choice. I just can't imagine being in her shoes where, because I didn't have a consistent form of communication, all of my decisions were made for me. Yeah, inability to voice her desires. That was just so frustrating for her not to be able to relay that to her loved one. Now, her dad only has two hands, so he could only give her two choices, orange juice or hot chocolate. And let's just assume that she already had 10 cups of coffee before she came, so those were her only two options. However, it was almost like she didn't even have the dignity of advocating for herself of, no, can I have one more cup of coffee? So wouldn't it have been cool if there was a communication board at the counter of the coffee shop where she could have pointed to which option she wanted so that she could have a choice? Now, thankfully for Carly, there was an SLP or speech language pathologist that really saw the potential in her and taught her how to spell and type, and she uses a tablet to communicate. She spells just fine, double space, it speaks for her. She does interviews on YouTube with celebrities. It's a fantastic success story. And I think a lot of our folks could see that level of success as well. If you look at videos of Carly when she was younger, she would be considered profoundly affected by her autism. Very self-injurious, all sorts of stuff. So if you have anybody like that on your caseload and you're like, I can't figure out what to do, always start with communication of basic wants and needs. I hope another thing that you guys noticed was the audio processing delay. So sometimes whenever Carly's dad or sister was talking to her, by the time she faced them, their lips had stopped moving. So I always think about whenever you watch YouTube and there's some videos where the sound or the audio and the visuals don't quite line up, and how frustrating is that when the sound is delayed after the video and you're hitting refresh or you're going to the next one. Carly can't. That's her whole life. That's how it operates around her. So how frustrating is that to live your whole life like that? So just taking into the account that some of our folks have challenges every day that we can't really see, and things I've heard staff say all the time, their behavior came out of nowhere. I don't know what caused it. I do have some pretty good guesses of what caused it. And more often than not, it's a lack of communication and people not understanding their sensory sensitivities. So keep this in mind when thinking about your folks as well. All right. So speaking of sensory sensitivities and needs, let's talk about those. Folks with autism might have sensitivities to things like sight, sound, smells, taste, touch, right? 5 senses, but then also things like balance, awareness of body positions and movement, and awareness of internal body cues and sensations. We do have quite a number of adults that are incontinent, not because they want to be, right? But because they literally can't feel when their bladder is full or whenever they need to, use the restroom. There's also folks who can't feel their body in space. So you're like, they're constantly moving. They can't keep their hands to themselves. It's like they're not even aware of it because they might not be. And so it's good to work with an OT for that kind of stuff as well. So in your space where you're currently at, your office, your day program, or wherever you're at, name some things that you're aware of using your senses right now. So is that you have your essential oils going off in the corner? Is that a fellow employee having lunch in the background and you can smell it? What are some things you can detect with your senses right now? Lighting, absolutely. I never turn on my fluorescents in here. Some smells, hopefully Pandora, those are pleasant smells. I know it's not always the case. Hopefully pleasant noises, Renee, nice soft music. Anything else you guys notice? Sometimes I point out that you can hear the air conditioning, a fan blowing, same. So our folks with autism, really anybody, right? So I can generalize this to the general population as well. Experience hypersensitivity, which is over responsiveness, which is what we usually think of, but they could also experience hyposensitivity or a mixture of both. So many folks with autism experience hypersensitivity to bright lights or certain light wavelengths like LED or fluorescence, and certain sounds, smells, textures, and tastes can also be overwhelming. This can result in a sensory avoidance, so trying to get away from whatever it is that most people can easily tune out. Sensory avoidance can look like pulling away from physical touch, covering their ears to avoid loud or unpredictable sounds, or avoiding certain kinds of clothing. Hyposensitivity is also common. This can look like a constant need for movement, difficulty recognizing sensations like hunger, illness, or pain, or an attraction to loud noises, bright lights, and vibrant colors. Many people who are hyposensitive may engage in sensory seeking behaviors to get more sensory input from the environment. For example, people with autism may stimulate their senses by making loud noises, touching people or objects, or rocking back and forth. So those are all examples. Now, I don't experience sensory seeking or sensory avoiding behaviors as intensely as some of our folks, so I think it's nice to also paint a picture. It can be physically and emotionally draining if individuals are hypersensitive and can leave the person feeling too exhausted to do other tasks. Many autistic people use stemming as a form of sensory seeking to keep their sensory system in balance. Repetitive movements, sounds, or fidgeting can help people with autism stay calm, relieve stress, or block out uncomfortable sensory input. There was a fun project done by an autistic artist, Anouk of Autism Sketches, and they asked people with autism, what does stemming feel like? So I'm going to give you guys some examples. Stemming feels like relief. It's an outlet, like liberating a lot of stored energy, an electric current flowing through me, an electric charge I need to shake off. A weight lifted from my chest, a release of pressure that's built up inside of me. My bones are buzzing and it only stops if I stem. It's my entire nervous system calming down. Like floating on a cloud, like I'm about to fly. Recharging, calming, a breath of fresh air. Like riding a wave, like you've built up all this energy and stemming helps release it. Finally being able to take a deep breath after holding it for a long time. Like untying or loosening a knot that has been gradually getting tighter all day. getting rid of a burst of energy. If I don't stim, my body feels like it's on fire. So once upon a time, if we saw people stimming to regulate their senses, we would stop them either physically or tell them to stop. And we know not to do that anymore. Now, let's consider that constant movement can sometimes seem inappropriate or disruptive in certain settings, like if they, are in a university class or they're in the middle of a shift or at a restaurant. So sometimes our folks with autism feel like they need to suppress that stimming. And when this happens, it becomes more and more difficult to self-regulate, leading to a sensory overload, exhaustion, or burnout. And we're going to watch an example of that real quick.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Take my hand.
I'm not naughty. I'm autistic. And I just get too much information.
So that's a good example of how some of the things can layer on top of each other to then result in a behavior that seemingly came out of nowhere. Now, there are some accommodations I'd like you to consider if you haven't already for hypersensitivity. So these could be things like using light covers, sunglasses, or a hat under fluorescent lights if you can't switch them out, wearing earplugs or headphones in noisy environments, working in spaces with a closed door or high walls to kind of block out some of that visual input, avoiding strongly scented products or perfumes, choosing foods that avoid aversions or textures, temperatures, or spices, so pretty bland stuff, wearing soft, comfortable clothing, sign me up, I like stretchy fabrics, and adjusting schedules to avoid crowds, for example. For our folks on the other side for hyposensitivity, they would benefit from some accommodations like visual supports for difficulty processing spoken information, using fidget toys, chewies, or other sensory tools, arranging furniture to provide safe open spaces for our folks that like to wander and walk and need to get that input, taking frequent movement breaks throughout the day. Expecting them to sit for hours on end is cruel and unusual punishment. Eating foods with strong flavors or mixed textures. I once consulted on a case where the individual ate everything with hot sauce. I've never before seen cereal with hot sauce, but now I can say that I have, and he loved it. Also knew a child that unless there was some texture to the food, they couldn't feel it in their mouth and they would choke. So he would always tend to gravitate towards crunchy food, for example. Then there's also weighted blankets, lap pads, or clothing that provides deep pressure or compression. Go ahead and tell me in the chat, what are some accommodations that you guys use at your place? A go-talk device. I love that. Any accommodations for sensory sensitivities, for hyper or hyposensitivity? Headphones, yeah. Soft lighting, absolutely. Hopefully, if you guys aren't using accommodations for your folks, those two lists gave you guys some really good options to try out. Everybody has different thresholds of what they can handle. And so building in those accommodations so they're universally available would be helpful to probably a lot of your clients. Yeah, not using strong chemicals. Absolutely. Strong smelling chemicals. All right, let's dive into some learning characteristics. Some of our folks with autism can be concrete thinkers. So that may mean that they have difficulty thinking in abstract, and they do better with topics and concepts that can be seen or touched. So things like Love is an abstract concept, but a hug is something they can see and touch. So concrete topics. Over selectivity, they could cue in or attend to irrelevant detail. And then inability to generalize. One of the consistent characteristics of learners with autism is that they have difficulty transferring skills to new situations and environments and maintaining skills they have mastered. For example, someone might be able to respond when someone greets them saying hello, but not when they're greeted in a different greeting, such as hi, what's up, or how's it going? How's it going? They could get easily distracted, which could be helpful if you're trying to redirect, but it's not very helpful when you're trying to teach them a skill. A lot of our folks are visual and spatial learners, meaning unless I had this PowerPoint and I was just talking at them for an hour, it probably wouldn't land very well. So they learn better by seeing and doing, so that modeling, that teach, show, do model, rather than by hearing. And think about all the instructions you give to the folks at your program throughout the day. A lot of them are verbal. That's probably not how our folks learn best. So how can we modify our instructions so that we're not repeating ourselves 10, 20, 30 times? You guys have also mentioned ritualistic. So some of our folks, when they learn a task one way, they tend to always do it that way, which is really cool if they're a child and you can get in there early, kind of difficult when they're 20, 30, 40, 50, and you're trying to undo a ritual. So we keep that in mind. The cool thing that I talked in a previous training about is motivation. They're likely not motivated by the same things we are. So money is really cool to me, keeps me going to my job every day in addition to other things. But some of our folks couldn't care less about money, but they might care more about adding a new figurine to their collection, for example. Something that I always keep in mind is if they can't learn the way we teach the way they learn. We're going to spend the last 15 minutes of today practicing. You can't split into pairs, so just ignore that. You're going to enter into the chat the corresponding emoji. Now, there's a way to do emojis in your chat message. You can hit the smiley face, hit see all, and search for, it's like in a search box, it says find something fun. You can type in ear or light bulb or hand, and it pops up, and that's how you can enter it. So, you are in a residential facility. An adult starts rocking back and forth and humming loudly during dinner in the dining hall. What sensory sensitivity might they be experiencing? Sensitivity to loud noises, sensitivity to bright lights, or sensitivity to touch? What do you think? Yeah, an ear. Yes, for loud noises. That's a wiggling ear. I didn't know the ear would wiggle. So weird. Anybody else have a guess? You could just type the answer if you can't find the emoji. It's okay. I tend to lean towards A as well because they're humming, so they're providing that, not counter pressure, but a competing noise to kind of overwhelm something else. Good job. All right, here's another one. An individual repeatedly takes off their shoes and socks, refusing to wear them even in cold weather. What sensory sensitivity might they be experiencing? A, sensitivity to touch, B, sensitivity to smell, or C, sensitivity to sound. Yeah, I'm gonna go with A as well. Look at the fingers touching. I can't with y'all. That's fun. That's fun. Good job. All right, next one. A resident becomes visibly distressed when entering a room with strong cleaning product smells and starts covering their nose. How can you support them? A, relocate them to a better ventilated space. B, use unscented cleaning products when possible. C, introduce more scents over time so they get used to it. I like A and B too. I think immediately relocate them to a better ventilating space, but B, in the future, use unscented cleaning products when possible. Absolutely. Oh my God. Shermise, you are doing the most. I love it. An individual flaps their hands and paces quickly after transitioning from a quiet activity to a loud group setting. How should staff respond? A, allow them to self-regulate in a quieter space. B, stop them immediately and redirect their attention. Or C, imitate their movements to help them feel included. Yeah, I'm gonna go with A. There is nothing wrong with flapping their hands. Obviously, something's a little bit overwhelming in this loud group setting, so we're gonna bring them to a quieter place to regulate and see how we can put in some accommodations like the noise canceling headphones or maybe some white noise to help them out a little bit. Last one of these pop quizzes, a resident refuses to eat certain foods and gags when offered them, even when they are not tasting them yet. What sensory sensitivity might they be experiencing? Sensitivity to smell, sensitivity to taste and texture, or sensitivity to sound? Now, they haven't tasted them yet. Right, Amanda? It could be B or A. I'm leaning more towards A because they haven't tasted them yet. But honestly, it could be either or, probably not C, unless it's very noisy food, right? All right, now we're going to talk about some of the learning characteristics or practice that. So I want you to take out a scratch piece of paper, a notepad, I do not care, and I'm going to provide some simple step-by-step drawing instructions. I want you to follow the instructions given exactly and do not infer any additional steps. So don't fill in the gaps, just do exactly what I say. I'm going to let you know ahead of time, I'm not going to repeat any of my instructions. I'm going to go kind of slow, but I'm not going to repeat any of my instructions. And so this would be a step-by-step learning characteristic that we talked about before, right? Hey, can somebody give me a thumbs up or an I'm ready in the chat? Get a pen and a piece of paper. All right, Renee's ready. We'll go. All right, I want you to draw 2 circles across from each other. Shade a round circle inside each of the previous circles. Then draw a curved line above each eye. Draw a rounded W-shaped line below and between the first circles. Above the central point of the rounded W, draw a rounded triangle. Extend curved lines from the sides of the rounded W. Draw a short U-shaped line below the rounded W. Draw a long curved line around 3 sides of the face. Draw 2 partial triangle shapes on the remaining side. Use a curved line to connect the large partial triangle shapes. Draw a rounded triangle inside the larger triangles, smaller but parallel to the exterior lines. 2 more steps. Draw a narrow U-shaped lines along the top and draw a narrow U-shaped line of different lengths down each side. Who's brave enough to show us on camera what they drew? It's okay. Did anybody's picture look like this? That was a 12-step, easy to draw cat instruction I pulled from the internet that's for children. That was supposed to be 12 easy steps of how to draw a cat face. I don't know how successful you guys got or how close you got to that, but you can see how verbal instructions alone might not be effective for our folks, unless one of you Picassos drew this cat, and in which case verbal instructions works really well for you. Keep going strong. But some of our folks, how many of you would have got it if I would have shown you step by step on the screen what I meant in conjunction with what I said? Almost everybody. So that's why I think a visual representation of our instructions is the key to the success of our individuals, following it, making choices, that kind of fun stuff. All right, guys, we're going to watch one more video to round out the day. This is one of my favorite videos. If anybody's in the Charlotte area, there's an organization called Autism Strong. They support individuals, families that have individuals with autism. And they made a video of why they created their foundation. And this is their story.
I think what we try and do is we try and fit him into our world. And he has something completely different in his head. I remember picking up the call, and she goes, "Hey, there's two of them. There's two heartbeats. There's two babies."
They were 8 weeks early.
Our twins, they fought for life in the beginning, and we were at the NICU every single day for 5 weeks. We brought him home, and actually Landon was doing better than Addison. And then something changed.
I was thinking, oh, I wonder if he's deaf. Because when we would call his name, he wouldn't even look for us. We went and got seriously tested, and they told us, your son has autism.
When you're becoming parents, you come to expect things like, my child's gonna be able to talk to me. And when they don't, you're kind of paralyzed. We recently just went to see a neurologist again. They said, you know, your son has the mind of an 18-month-old. You know, he's 13.
Okay. All done. Thank you.
He's nonverbal. So his brain and his mouth don't talk to each other. I do think he's sensitive to sound. He likes to put his iPad up full volume and put it right next to his ear. And he loves music, and he loves classical music. It will stop him in his tracks if he's walking around and all of a sudden he hears music. But there's certain tones he doesn't like, the trumpet, and he will put his hands over his ears and he'll run up to his room and shut the door. But more of the lower tones of like a cello, it soothes him.
Let's get your book. Here, right here. He wants to communicate. He really wants to.
Sometimes you catch him just like staring at you, and you just take that moment in. And that's the only way you can connect, because you can't connect with words.
All right, come here.
He's in pretty intense therapy, basically to train his brain.
So trying to find a way for him to communicate via pictures or what have you, and that's taken years of training.
For the last year and a half, I've been working on trying to teach him how to wash himself. And I think we've basically maxed out of where we're at.
There isn't this perfect fix. I'd give anything to find a shot or a device or a pill or something he could take.
But the main thing I worry about is when we're gone. Is he ever gonna understand that we didn't leave him because we wanted to?
I can't even imagine who's gonna love him like we do.
It's really, really hard, but you have to find the beauty in it.
You hear his laugh, it's just so infectious. Landon is different. Okay, they're different, but everybody's different. Everybody has their story. It's really put my life in perspective on what really matters. And what really matters is love. And loving my son the way he is.
These families like us need sometimes a little extra compassion. And that's where it's amazing to see communities step up, allowing all autistic children to have more chances.
So, I love you.
I just love that story from them. It's a wonderful foundation and a wonderful family. But when they ask, you know, who's going to love him like we do, or if he's going to understand that we didn't leave him because we had to, I think about that with our folks at the residential facilities all over the state. How many of them truly understand that their parents love them and this is the best that they could offer for them? And that's where we come in, right? So we're the day program providers who care for them. We're the regional facilities staff or the residential facility staff who care for them. And knowing that there's a family on the other side that really did the best they could with the information that they had with their loved one, and they have trusted us enough to take care of them. So I think seeing that family side of stuff always reminds me kind of why we're doing this, right? And how communication has helped so many people. But thank you so much for hanging out with me, participating, answering the questions. I really appreciate you guys. This is my email address. Don't hesitate to reach out. I love talking about autism, so give me an excuse to talk to you guys about autism. Thank you so much.